After the couple falls into a mysterious cave,
What is this place? We can build a fire. Wait it out. Hello! Man versus wild, babe.
thirst forces them to drink from the stagnant water inside.
Wait, stop. Slow.
Their homecoming triggers a chain of terrifying events, which I'll explain. Stay with me and let's go back to the beginning. The story begins with a search party looking for a missing couple deep in the forest. Hidden from plain sight, there's a mysterious cave entrance filled with secrets and strange energy. Two rescue dogs wander into this cave and drink some of the stagnant water inside. They return to their owner quietly, but something about them has changed. Their behavior becomes increasingly odd, raising the owner's suspicions. He begins closely monitoring them, only to eventually witness a horrifying scene. The dogs have grotesquely fused together. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Tim is looking through an old photo album filled with memories of him and Millie. The couple has planned a farewell party with their friends. They've decided to leave city life behind and move into a countryside home. It was Millie's idea, and while Tim agreed, his face betrays some hesitation. Millie's close friend Kath warns her not to rush into the relationship, but Millie is confident in the connection they share. On the balcony, Tim's friends are discussing business. They offer Tim a spot on an upcoming music tour managed by their label. Despite his promise to Millie, Tim decides to join his friends in a few days to take advantage of this major career opportunity. Initially, their friends are surprised by Tim's decision. After all, he was supposed to quit music and take the next step with Millie. However, they come around. We then witness a scene where Millie proposes to Tim, but his hesitation turns the moment into a disaster. Although they seem in love, something feels off between them. It's as if the bond they once shared is fading. Tim isn't in a good mental state and refuses to tell Millie the reason behind his recurring nightmares. The next day, their furniture arrives at the new rural house. They're happily unpacking, but Tim notices a foul smell in the home that starts to bother him. He decides to find the source. Eventually, he discovers the decaying remains of several rats stuck together and hidden in the chandelier, the cause of the stench. Although the rats' fused state is bizarre, it doesn't seem important. Tim gets rid of them. Millie finds it odd how quickly Tim tracked the smell. At her new job, Millie is the newcomer and often ignored by her colleagues until she meets Jamie, who warmly introduces himself.
I'm Jamie. Welcome.
Millie is a teacher who's just joined the local school, where Jamie oversees hiring. He seems curious about the depth of Millie's relationship with Tim, possibly to see if there's hope for him. His growing affection for Millie is apparent. It turns out they live near each other, which gives Jamie an excuse to offer help and guidance, something Millie appreciates. Later, while Tim is recording a demo, Millie tries to seduce him.
Come to bed with me.
But he's uninterested, once again leaving her disappointed. The next day, as previously planned, the couple heads for a long walk deep into the forest near their new home. During the hike, Tim notices repeated symbols and discovers a hidden path. Soon, the weather turns against them and they become disoriented. Tim tries to use his phone's compass to find the way back, but accidentally falls into a cave. When Millie tries to help, she falls in too. Fortunately, both are unharmed. They decide to take shelter in the cave until the rain stops.
Gotta get out
The
of
cave
here.
gives them an eerie feeling, but Tim tries to reassure Millie by lighting a fire, convincing her to stay for a while. Their phones have no signal and their water supply is only enough for one person. To ease the tension, Tim has brought a bottle of wine, so they choose to share it. But Tim also drinks from the cave's stagnant water to quench his thirst. In my opinion, drinking from a mysterious spring inside a symbol-marked cave is reckless, and I advise you not to be as naive as Tim. Still, they try to use the moment to reconnect and resolve their issues. Tim opens up about something that resurfaced the night before. When he found the dead rats in the chandelier, it triggered a traumatic memory. He recalls how, after his father's death, his mother suffered a mental breakdown and kept the corpse beside her for days. Young Tim eventually discovered the scene himself, an experience that still haunts him and fuels his nightmares. Millie listens, understands, and stays by his side, determined to help him heal. While sleeping in the cave, Tim suddenly wakes up in a panic, feeling as if the cave's air is tightening around his chest, making it hard to breathe. Moments later, Millie wakes him from a nightmare and tells him the terrifying night is finally over. It's time to leave. As they get up, they discover their legs are stuck together with a sticky substance. It's strange but not alarming. They struggle a bit and manage to separate themselves. The couple exits the cave and walks back home, talking about the bizarre events of the night before. Once home, Millie asks Tim to help relieve her muscle tension. He begins gently massaging her, but midway he falls into a strange mental void. The sessions end abruptly as Millie is left hurt and in pain. Tim apologizes,
really
but Millie pulls away, saying she needs some space. She decides to drive into the village for some errands, asking Tim to stay home, rest, and take a shower.
As Millie drives off, Tim, still standing at the front door, experiences another sudden neurological episode. His body seizes up, and it's as though his very being is magnetically tethered to Millie, pulled in whatever direction she goes. When he regains awareness, he realizes he has harmed himself, but has no memory of what just happened. Tim rushes to his therapist's office and recounts the incident, how he lost control. The therapist initially suggests this might be tied to the traumatic memory of his mother's mental breakdown, which Tim once witnessed. But Tim firmly disagrees. He describes the episodes as more physical than emotional, like a strange seizure. The therapist urges him to confide in his close friends and prescribes a muscle relaxant to help suppress any future attacks. The medication is designed to slow the brain's central control system, easing the severity of the seizures. But Tim isn't convinced. He leaves the session gripped by fear, knowing these attacks are something new and unfamiliar in his body. At home, he begins researching the recently missing couple who disappeared in the forest. Millie warns him not to spend too much time online, especially given their limited data, but Tim insists. He's worried the same thing that happened to that couple might be happening to them. The patterns are eerily similar, even down to their social media posts. Their conversation is cut short when Jamie arrives at their door to officially welcome them to the neighborhood. The couple greets him warmly and invites him inside. They tell him about getting lost in the forest and falling into a cave. Tim suggests the cave might have been connected to some strange cult. Jamie laughs it off, explaining that what they saw was likely just the remains of a small abandoned church in the woods that collapsed due to lack of maintenance and heavy rain. The conversation turns tense when Millie, in front of Jamie, mockingly mentions how Tim can't drive and constantly depends on her. Her tone is playful, but it embarrasses and angers Tim. After Jamie leaves, Millie and Tim argue about his overly friendly behavior with her. When they kiss, their lips strangely stick together, another unsettling moment that turns into a misunderstanding. Millie accuses Tim of always ruining the moments between them. Tim, growing panicked again, tries to explain these strange things he's been experiencing, but Millie doesn't believe him. That night, as they sleep, a faint gnawing sound wakes Millie, like a rat chewing me. She opens her eyes and realizes Tim is choking, his mouth full of her hair, unconsciously chewing on it. They manage to wake him up and pull him out of it. The next morning, Tim is getting ready to leave. Millie had promised to drive him to the train station so he could join his friends on the music tour. Millie tries to stop him, urging him to rest and recover from what happened the night before, but Tim insists on going. He believes some space will do him good. After leaving her and heading to the station, Tim experiences another violent neurological episode. He tries to control it by taking the medication his therapist prescribed, but ultimately he misses the train. Disoriented and limping, he heads toward Millie's workplace instead. Millie is there, confiding in her best friend about everything that's happened recently. In the middle of their conversation, she sees Tim lingering near the building, looking dazed. Alarmed, she rushes him to a private space where they begin to talk. But Tim, in a strange, uncontrollable state, suddenly becomes overly affectionate, as if unable to restrain himself. Their encounter escalates, and they end up having sex in a student bathroom. But what was meant to be an intimate moment quickly turns into something tragic and disturbing. They can't separate from each other. A student, hearing noises, alerts Jamie.
When Jamie arrives at the bathroom, Millie musters all her strength to break free from Tim and tries to downplay the situation. Jamie, who clearly understands what's going on, chooses to act polite and leaves the restroom without pressing the issue. Back home, the couple falls into yet another fight. Millie tells Tim that if he thinks moving in with her was a mistake, he should just go back to the city. Tim explains that he doesn't know what's happening to his body. All he knows is that he can't seem to be away from her. Millie brushes this off as another cliché excuse. Wanting to repair the damage, she goes to Jamie's house. Once there, she apologizes and tries to regain his trust, hoping she can continue working as a teacher. They talk about her relationship with Tim, how unsure she now feels, and whether he's truly her other half. Jamie responds by sharing a myth, how Zeus once split humans in two, fearing their perfection. Originally, humans had 2 heads, 4 arms, and 4 legs, but Zeus divided them, cursing them for ever searching for their missing half. Jamie says this to make Millie reconsider whether she should give up on Tim so easily. He then opens up about his own past, a lost love, someone he still mourns. Through his story, Millie realizes that Jamie himself once abandoned the person he believed was his true other half and now lives with regret. Jamie tries to show her his wedding video, but before he can, Millie spots Tim standing near the house. She quickly says goodbye and leaves. That night, Tim receives a flurry of messages from his friends, confused by the cancellation of the tour, but he no longer seems to care. Once certain that Millie is asleep, he resumes his research on the missing couple. He eventually locates the place where their final photo was taken, the very same cave he and Millie had been in days earlier. Even the markings match. Suddenly, the internet cuts out and his search is interrupted. At that very moment, a heavy object slams against his bedroom door. Millie, drawn to him as if by magnetic force. They try to make sense of what's happening, but Millie dismisses it as just another sleepwalking episode. Tim insists something has poisoned them, changed them, but Millie reminds him that her family is visiting for lunch on Sunday, and he needs to stop acting paranoid. They decide to sleep separately for the night and exchange a cold goodnight from a distance. Later that night, Tim finds himself being physically pulled toward Millie's room in his sleep. He fights it with everything he has. Meanwhile, Millie's door opens on its own, and she too begins moving toward Tim, seemingly ready to fuse again. Tim manages to delay the inevitable. Before they fully merge, he grabs the muscle relaxants from the drawer. They both take them in desperation to stop the transformation. Moments later, they collapse, unconscious. The next morning, Tim wakes up tied to a chair. He's still slightly fused to Millie. She's made up her mind. While the medication still dulls the pain, she wants to separate them completely, no matter the cost. Tim begs her to find another way, but as the drug wears off, it becomes clear the only option left is a chainsaw. After a horrifying, painful procedure, they finally succeed in separating their bodies. Millie decides to go to the hospital to find more medication. Tim, however, insists they must go back to the cave to find the source of all this madness. Millie realizes she left her keys at Jamie's house. She heads there while Tim races into the forest, determined to end this. Jamie isn't home. Millie fails to find her keys, but instead stumbles upon a set of disturbing photos. Jamie and his former lover, seemingly members of a strange cult. At the same time, inside the cave, Tim sees the same symbols again. Jamie, now revealed in his true form, appears before Millie, physically fused to his former lover through some blood ritual. He explains the nature of their joining and reveals that the person he's shown Millie and Tim all this time was just a facade. In the cave, Tim collapses. His body is pulled into the floor. A terrifying creature approaches him, one that sends him into complete panic. Using his flashlight, Tim realizes it's the missing couple, now grotesquely merged in a failed fusion, transformed into something monstrous. Meanwhile, Jamie tells Millie that her fusion with Tim is now inevitable. The bond between them is complete. He urges her to accept it and explains the spiritual benefits of becoming one with another soul. To speed up the process, he carves a wound onto Millie's hand, mirroring the one in his wedding video. But Millie suddenly strikes him and runs. Jamie has now merged with his lover into a grotesque hybrid creature. Tim manages to break free from the repulsive being and escape the cave. He runs home in a panic, only to find Millie waiting, shaken, yet distant. She begs him to keep his distance. But it's too late. The curse has bound them like magnets, pulling them toward one another with unstoppable force. Tim believes he has finally found a way to free Millie from this twisted fate. So instead of resisting, he approaches her, calmly, lovingly. He kneels down and proposes to her. He knows there isn't much time left. He should have expressed his love long ago, and now this is his only chance to show her the sincerity of his heart. Tim confesses his deep feelings and then declares he must end his own life to release her from the bond. But just as he prepares to do so, he realizes Millie is wounded. He quickly takes her into his arms, holding her tightly so they can share what may be her final moments together. Millie dies in his arms. Tim weeps over her lifeless body. Then, in the next scene, we see that Tim has fused his own hand into her body, using their connection to stop the bleeding and save her life. The two lovers, now fully committed to each other, know without a doubt that their bond is real and irreversible. They decide to complete the fusion process. Tim plays their favorite song. They kiss, deeply, tenderly, and moments later, the fusion begins. Their bodies painfully, slowly merge into one being. The internet finally reconnects, and their final post goes live. A mirror image of the story of the two lost hikers in the forest, now repeated. Sunday arrives. Just as planned, Millie's parents come to visit their daughter and her fiancé for lunch at the new house. But the person who opens the door is neither Tim nor Millie. It is someone who is both, a singular creature, a fusion of the two lovers, now living as one.